Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. I don't know why I laugh every time I say that. I just find it funny saying my name and that it's obvious. Tonight I was sent a message on Facebook by a friend of mine. Now, he's a Facebook friend, but he's also a guy I know in person in Vancouver. So, I take his messages seriously. And he sent me a link to what I believe is a social phenomenon happening in Vancouver, the city that I live in, but I'm certain also happening in other cities. And that is, I hesitate to say feminists, but certainly social justice warriors, posting on Facebook lists of the names of people who they are accusing of sexual misconduct or sexual assault or sexual harassment on Facebook, on social media. Which means, semi-anonymously, the person who's posting, you can see who they are, if in fact their Facebook account is their name. But reaching out to all of their Facebook friends, canvassing them for names, and then compiling those into lists and posting those on Facebook and saying, these are rapists, and these are the names of real people in the city that they're in. So, in Vancouver, it was a group of people who had canvassed and got the names of seven different people in the local music scene. 7 names. All men, of course, right? And the list was posted 18 hours before it was, reposted to me that I knew of it. And of those 7 names, apparently, in that 18 hours, one of them had committed suicide. Apparently as a result of this public campaign of accusation. Interestingly, also, the person who'd posted the names of these 7 people in the local music industry, whose names I'm not going to give you, by the way, one of the names was corrected because they'd given the wrong last name. It was a common first name and a common last name, and they had changed the last. Oopsie, I gave the wrong last name. So they had casually, flippantly, accidentally, not paying attention to the details, named somebody with the wrong last name as a criminal, as a person who had committed sexual assault. And then, oops, no, it's not this last name, it's that last name. Oops! The casual fuck-up, the casual error there should kind of tell you something about why vigilante justice is such a dangerous thing. Never mind that even the corrected name is the right name or the wrong name, or it's a correct accusation, or just somebody who, was involved in a date that went badly, or sex that was not as exciting as you thought it was going to be. Oh, the other thing is that one of the names had committed suicide, apparently. Now, I don't know that they committed suicide. I don't know that anybody on that list actually committed a sexual offense. And the person who had apparently committed suicide, out of 7, one committed suicide. Did that cause the people slapping each other on the back and congratulating each other for being stunning and brave, did that cause them any pause for consideration? Oh, we're doing something that causes people to commit suicide. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. No. They said, well, we certainly didn't want that person to commit suicide, but you're doing the right thing. Keep going on. You're stunning and brave. So my question, and of course it's rhetorical, is how many people are we going to drive to suicide before we recognize that the posting of criminal accusation shit lists on social media is itself a form of vigilante violence, not to be tolerated in a civilized society? I expect the numbers are going to be in the hundreds or perhaps the thousands in each local community. A stronger argument for men to separate, go their own way, and have zero social interaction with women, I can't actually imagine a stronger argument for men to go the most hardcore version of MGTOW I can't imagine than this witch hunt. are any of the men in that 7 names, are any of them actually guilty of anything? Or is it all just hurt feelings, a date gone wrong, somebody who got turned down and is vengeful? And if you think that doesn't happen, you're a dope. That's the first of the 2 things I wanted to talk about. The second thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is, are you a good guy or are you a bad guy? Are you evil or are you good? Are you malevolent? Are you positive? Are you socially acceptable or are you socially unacceptable? I have argued in the past that there is no such thing as a good guy or a bad guy. And I've argued this in a very rationalistic, logical way, and I'm not sure I actually reached anybody. So I want to talk now about 2 different conceptions of a concept we'll loosely call justice. In Egyptian mythology, there is a god named Anubis. Anubis has the head of a jackal, and after you die, you are faced by Anubis. He takes your heart out of your chest, puts it on a scale, and measures your heart against a feather. Now, it's sort of a cosmic, magical feather, so it's obviously of equal or similar weight to your heart, metaphysically speaking. And if your heart is heavier than the feather, you do not get to live forever. And if your heart is lighter than the feather, meaning you are possessed of innocence in some way, then you become immortal and you get to be reincarnated or go forward and details like that. And I'm not enough of an expert on Egyptian mythology to tell you exactly how that all works. But this measurement of your heart is kind of the central thesis here. Are you good? Your heart is light. Are you evil? Your heart is heavy. That is not the way the Western world's justice system actually works. We don't measure whether people are good or evil. We measure their actions. So you might be a crime boss, but you didn't actually commit that murder. You will be acquitted based on the evidence that shows you didn't commit that murder. Or you're an extremely lovely person. You're a noble person, but you committed a crime and the evidence shows you committed the crime. You are guilty. The evidence says you're guilty. So what you do, in the Western concept of justice, the precise actions you committed that we can prove you did, that is the determiner of your either guilt or innocence. And it's a separate question from, are you a good guy? And these are 2 very different conceptions of justice. Now, the Western conception of justice has this imagery surrounding it. It has the female figure with the blindfold on, and the scale, and sometimes a sword. And the scale is the measurement of your action. The blindfold is really the idea that it doesn't matter if you are rich or poor. We're not going to judge you based on your clothes. Your clothes tell me if you're rich or poor. We're not going to judge you based on what color your skin is. Are you from the ruling class? Are you from the subordinate class? We don't care. The blindness, the blindfold of justice says that it doesn't matter what social caste you come from. It is only your actions that we measure, and that is the scale. And then, of course, the sword that justice holds is the penalty should we find you guilty. And presumably, in a broader philosophical sense, the penalty to be wielded against your accuser if your accuser is false rather than you. But in this conception of justice, that scale, the measurement of guilt or innocence, is of your actions, not of your heart. And I separate that from the Egyptian idea where Anubis, the judge of the dead, who pulls your heart out, puts it on the scale next to that feather, says your heart is heavy, you don't get to go on in the afterlife, or your heart is light, you are an innocent person, on you go, immortality for you, and what's on. Are you good or are you bad? I will suggest to you that the modern social justice conception of guilt or innocence is much closer to Anubis measuring your heart. Now, we separate this from your actions. Are you of the right political ideology? Are you good? And it's the attachment of good or goodness or badness or benevolence or malice to some concept of your internal self, your soul, or what have you, which allows people to behave in monstrous, violent, psychopathic, and harmful ways because they justify, well, I'm a good person, therefore my violence is justified, rather than the separation of, it doesn't matter if I'm in a Western court, the criminal or the noble person, it is my actions in this moment that matter. And I will argue that we are changing our standards societally from measuring the actions which are the determiner of guilt or innocence to measuring this much more esoteric and abstract idea of this is a good person, therefore their violence, their aggression, their harm done to another person is justified, or this is a bad person, therefore it doesn't matter if they didn't do anything wrong, throw them in jail, destroy them. Perhaps, once we get a little farther down this path, kill them. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, have a lovely day.